y'all, welcome back. I was just thinking about all the different ways that I've reduced our grocery bill over the last couple of years, and we've saved thousands, but one of the biggest ways is that we eat less meat. And this is super controversial, and I'm not exactly sure why it's such a big deal, but I noticed that I have been recommending that people eat less meat, and I haven't been explaining how we got from a full-on meat-eating, meat-focused family to more meatless meals. And so I want to show you exactly how I recommend progressing from eating lots of beef to maybe eating more beans, and just give you a few tips and tricks for maybe some picky eaters and things in your house. So let me show you some ideas. The first thing that I recommend is tackling an easy meal to switch over to meatless. And for me, that's breakfast, because breakfast to me usually means eggs and hash browns, sometimes bacon or sausage, things like that, pancakes, waffles, all that jazz. Instead of having the breakfast sandwiches that include, sausage, ham, or bacon, I'll just buy the ingredients separately and make my own cheese and egg only, like English muffin breakfast. And I'll wrap those up and get those in the freezer. So that's a super easy way. Hard-boiled eggs work really good for my picky kids. Switching over to a protein muffin, I make one that has black beans that is absolutely amazing. It's black beans and eggs and some baking ingredients and cocoa powder and chocolate chips. It's really, really good. But if you don't want to do black beans, you could do a Kodiak mix, and it's like high protein. Switching over the breakfast was the first easy thing to switch. For instance, right now I'm gonna be making some overnight oats, and that is something that my husband, it turns out, he liked. And then that's the other thing, is I ask my husband, what is it that he likes? So he gets a lot of input on what I make. So a lot of times I'll run things by him first and say, hey, would you be willing to try A, B, and C? And he always says yes. He doesn't complain. He just tries everything. But he will give me his honest opinion about whether or not he likes something. So over the years, I've tried all kinds of different breakfasts. Breakfast burritos, breakfast sandwiches, overnight oats, you name it, I've tried it. Give options. For my kids, I'll say, do you want hard-boiled eggs this morning or a protein muffin? I also make protein pancakes and protein waffles. Usually I just do a mix for that, because that works great, because Kodiak does have mixes. Or you can make your own protein mix, whatever you want to do. I also like to keep some breakfast sandwiches in the freezer, and I do keep breakfast sandwiches with meat as well, but we don't eat them every single day. And so that way it mixes things up and gives us more options. So that way we don't feel like we're depriving ourselves. We just have a ton of things to eat, and every day it's something different. So that has helped us a ton. Now let me show you this recipe for overnight oats really quick, because I like to prep these usually just 2 at a time, because my husband tends to forget that I make them. So I'll just make 2 at a time, but you can make up to 4 days worth without the texture changing. But after that, I wouldn't recommend eating them. I think 4 days is kind of the max, at least for us, as far as texture goes. So first I'm gonna start with half a cup of old-fashioned rolled oats. And I just get these ones from Aldi, but you can definitely get organic old-fashioned rolled oats. I've used those too. They work really good. I'm just gonna put those in a mason jar. You don't need to use mason jars though. You can use any airtight container. I just recommend like a glass container or a plastic container that you can seal and keep in the fridge, of course. So we've got half a cup of oats, and then I'm just gonna do equal parts oats and milk. So half a cup of oats, half a cup of milk. And if you wanna do plant-based milk, that works really, really good too for this. So if you wanna do soy milk or almond milk, or you could just use water if that's what you'd like, but of course it would be less protein if you did that, because milk, especially non-fat milk, has a lot of protein per cup. So this is whole milk that I got from Costco. This has 8 grams of protein. And then this non-fat milk that I get from Aldi has 10 grams of protein per 8 ounces. So this does add quite a bit of protein. And the Greek yogurt I'm gonna be putting in here adds a ton of protein too, because surprisingly, non-fat Greek yogurt has a lot of protein. So this is gonna end up being a high protein, high fiber breakfast too, which is great. So it's gonna keep me full for a long time, or my husband. And I love those little mason jars, because you can just take them on the go and just eat it in your car, and it's not a big deal. And so, and you can heat it up too. If you don't wanna eat cold oats, you can warm it up. I think I've mentioned that before, but a lot of people say, I just can't eat cold oats, and that's fine. You can warm it up. And I'm just gonna be adding about 1/4 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. Of course, you can use plant-based yogurt if you want. Whatever you wanna do is fine though. All right, I've got all these things everywhere. What a mess. And my favorite breakfast right now is actually just to eat some Greek yogurt with fresh fruit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make my breakfast at the same time here. So that's one way that I save time though, is while I'm making my breakfast, I will try to batch cook something if possible, you know, or meal prep it or something, so that way I have more things done in the same amount of time, because this is gonna all take me, I already have the ingredients out, so it's gonna take me the same amount of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Next thing that I like to add to my overnight oats is honey. Now you can use maple syrup. My husband actually prefers maple syrup, but I've been just doing honey because a lot of times he forgets to take them, and I don't like maple syrup in mine. So I've just been doing honey because he doesn't mind. He'll eat the one with honey too. So we'll do that. And then the other two things that I add to our overnight oats to increase our protein and fiber is milled flax and chia seeds. And now these, I guess, are digested differently. It's different kinds of fiber. So that's why I've started adding both instead of just one, because one gets things going and the other gets things stopped. So putting them together, it's kind of like an equilibrium. I know maybe that's TMI, but that's what my nutritionist told me. So, okay, let's get a teaspoon of chia seeds in each of these. And you can use as much or as little as you want. And in milled, I like the milled flax, by the way, because it's easier to digest than whole flax. And I'm not having to mill it myself or, you know, grind it up myself. So I get this at Aldi. It's a good price. And in 4 tablespoons, you're getting 6 grams of protein and 7 grams of fiber, which is incredible. So I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons or so because I feel like it doesn't affect the texture very much, which is great because I'm a texture kind of person. And I'm gonna go ahead and give this a little bit of a mix now. And you can add vanilla extract. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how I feel. And then for these, I'm gonna go ahead and add some frozen fruit on top. And you can mix these or not mix these, whatever is easier. If you don't have time to mix them, it works just fine. I tested it out. You can just put all the ingredients in here, refrigerate it, and then the next day you can mix it. It'll be just fine. As long as the oats are covered in liquid, you're gonna be good. I'm gonna add this mixed berry concoction to one. I'm not a big fan of raspberries and blackberries in my overnight oats, so I'm just gonna do blueberries. So again, asking the family members their opinion and making sure that I keep that in mind when I'm prepping things. It just makes a huge difference in how much everybody enjoys what they eat, and nobody is complaining. And I often make different things for everybody, and having multiple things on hand makes it easy for me just to grab those things and put it on a plate, and it's not a big deal. So prepping 5 days worth of hard-boiled eggs, my husband and my son can eat those. My daughter doesn't like them and I don't like them, so we don't eat them. But then I'll keep the protein muffins and lots of fruit on hand for my daughter because that's what she likes in the morning. And I will usually just eat yogurt or whatever is available. And so I'm not as picky. Having all the options, it just makes it a lot easier and saves a ton of money, and everybody's happy in the house. So this is what the overnight oats look like when they're done. I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator and they'll be ready by tomorrow and last up to 4 days in the fridge. And that's what we do for breakfast. And to be completely honest, the reason why we started doing less meat in this house is because of a diagnosis we got a few years ago. And we've had a lot of diagnoses in this house. But anyway, so we had to start reducing sodium, which was our biggest thing. And then I started looking into ways to make sure that we lowered our triglycerides. And, you know, I'm not a nutritionist, and I can't give advice, you know, for that sort of thing, but I'm just telling you what we have done and why we did it. And having a diagnosis where I had to do a lot of research into figuring out what causes the issue that we were having just got me into the result here where we're at right now. So increasing our fiber was a huge thing. So increasing fiber, decreasing sodium, and decreasing all red meats, which wasn't a huge change for us because I would buy ground beef when it was on sale for $1.99 a pound and just buy it in bulk and freeze it in 1 pound portions and use it when needed. But we also ate a lot of ground turkey, which I transitioned us maybe 7 or 8 years ago from eating as much beef, and I started increasing our poultry instead. So we do eat a lot of chicken, ground turkey. So I would recommend, if you are a beef eater, I would recommend starting to swap out some of the ground turkey for the ground beef, maybe doing half ground beef, half ground turkey to start, and just see how you like that, because it's all about baby steps. I feel like if we have such high expectations and try to go cold turkey on something, we will fail. For us, we had to make a change drastically immediately. And so that had to happen, and I had to figure out how to make things taste amazing, using different ingredients that I've never used before. And I really had to step back and really rethink things. But if you have the luxury of not having to do it immediately, I do recommend trying to transition and just do little things here and there. So if you want to try to do more meatless meals, I recommend doing meat as a garnish. So when I say that, I mean using a pound of meat instead of 2 pounds of meat when you make your chili, and then adding in some beans. So add a can of black beans and a can of white beans, or any beans that you like. So do 2 cans of beans and 1 pound of meat to start. And then eventually you can do a half a pound of ground beef or ground turkey, and then add in a 3rd can of beans. And then eventually you'll just end up doing a 3-bean chili and just maybe piling on some cheese on top instead. And so transitioning to get yourself more familiar with the textures and the flavors of these new ingredients, I think that helps a ton. And I have heard some people mention that they like to hide things from their husband and their meals, and I get it. I totally get it. I luckily have not had to face that with my husband, but I totally understand when people say that. Although I don't recommend hiding any food. I recommend trying to be open and, mentioning to them, okay, I'm going to try something new. And a lot of times for my pickiest of eaters in this house, what I'll do is I'll make a regular version of something and the new version of something at the same time. So for instance, I could do rice, but do half cauliflower rice and half regular rice, and then just make a batch of regular rice as well. So that way they can try both and see what they think, and it's very little pressure. And if we decide we don't like it, we don't like it, because to be honest, I don't love cauliflower that much. And if somebody were to force me to try to eat it every day, I wouldn't enjoy that. So I think it's important to find what your family actually likes and what they will actually eat, and hopefully not have to hide things and just be more open. I think having an open conversation with the people that you live with is super important. It's hard to cook for an entire family and understand their needs and their wants and get everybody to really enjoy the food and want to eat at home and want to cook and want to learn what they like. Okay, I just finished taking my inventory and I wrote down a quick little set of meals for the week. I don't need leftovers for a good portion of the week. My husband has certain things going on at work, so he doesn't need them. So that's great because we can use certain things from the freezer that don't produce leftovers. So we'll be doing burritos and or corn dogs, depending on what everyone wants. Then lentil curry with rice, and I'll pick up some naan, serve that with some sort of veggie from the freezer, maybe broccoli. I do have sloppy joe mixture left from last week, so I'm going to be cooking that with the hot honey cornbread that I found for 25 cents at Aldi. I only have enough for 2 portions of that, so I'm going to be making salad with chicken and cheesy bread for the kids. That's what my son requested. And then salmon and fish sticks the next night with garlic parmesan roasted veggies. That's all from the freezer. It's going to be fend for yourself night, and then we're going to have a birthday party on the weekend here along with takeout. And then when we get home that night from all the festivities, we'll be doing something from the freezer as well. And then I like to kind of plan my next first day of the week. I'm just going to be planning to do a pot pie from the freezer. So really short list. I might have to add a couple extra things. I'll be making some peanut butter from scratch, carrot sticks, hard-boiled eggs, and then some brownies for my son's birthday as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and transfer that over to our dry erase board so I can put this on the refrigerator so everyone knows what we're having this week. Things have been kind of crazy around here, so today we're going to go ahead and take advantage of the freezer meal burritos. So my husband and I are going to have the chipotle black bean burritos, and my daughter was offered the bean and cheese burritos, but she's going to have a cheese and mayo sandwich. And my son is super picky, and he doesn't want any of those things. And since it's kind of like a random night, we're just going to have corn dogs for him. So definitely not the most nutritious thing that we have on hand, but I do keep it on hand for nights like this when I just need everybody to eat something. So we'll just do 1 corn dog for him tonight. I just heated these for about a minute, and then I'm going to turn them over and cook them for another minute and a half or so. I'm just going to get these nice and crispy on all sides, and then I'm going to check to see if it's cooked through. And if not, then I might have to just throw it in the microwave for another few seconds, but that's okay. And then I'll just top it with hot sauce, and that's it. Okay, so I did have to toss them in the microwave for a few more seconds, but now they're nice and ready. I overdid it on this side. It happens, I'm human. But they're going to be delicious. I'm going to just add a little bit of hot sauce on top. And Lily's got her cheese and mayo sandwich that she made, a little bit of hammy melon, and some honeydew. Very nice, good job. And then here's Grayson's plate. This is realistic what he'll probably eat today. Let's get some pancakes. And some fruit. And this is realistically the only thing my son would probably eat in the morning with some milk. And my daughter likes a little bit extra with some fruit and probably some milk too. My son is gonna have a couple more pancakes and then I'm just gonna have a cup of coffee for now. Now I wanna give you a few examples of how I use meat as a garnish. This one, for instance, is a cauliflower gnocchi with vodka sauce. And I had some meatballs in the freezer. I just cooked those up in the oven separately and added those on top. And my kids also got to have those on their plate as well. And I served it with some cheese on top and rolls and a little bit of spinach salad. So it was kind of a mishmash of everything. We ended up not liking the pasta, and that's totally fine, but meat wasn't the focus for that meal. Another one I love is these chicken wraps. Now you can change it to ground chicken or any kind of meat or protein that you love, which is great. Add any veggies you like. My kids love this because they get to make their own. And we also add a little bit of cheese. So you can really do a lot less meat in this and still have a really filling and delicious meal, especially if you add a little bit of sauce. And the same thing goes for sandwiches. And I also like to do these meatless versions of popular comfort foods like these sloppy joes. So I tried a just full bean and lentil version and we love it. So I make that pretty frequently. Again, here are those wraps and just with a little bit of meat and a lot of veggies and ranch and hot sauce and all the things. It's amazing. And fish is one thing that we have turned to doing at least once a week so we can make sure that we get that, squared away. So we try to do something really fun and delicious with that. Pot pie is great too because it is packed full of veggies and only uses a little bit of chicken. And then with something like pizza, I'll transfer over the meat to a different pizza for my husband and I'll add veggies to mine. And any meat that I have left over, I like to freeze. So I'll freeze in portions and then I can use that in a different way down the line as a garnish for something else. And that really helps save money on the budget and helps reduce my stress. And again, here's another salmon. This one is a honey soy salmon. I serve it with rice, stir-fry veggies, avocado. So it's just a little bit of fish with a lot of veggies. Next is this lazy lasagna. It uses cottage cheese, so it's packed full of protein and it has no meat, but it's super delicious. And I like to pack my freezer full of different kinds of foods so we can really just choose whatever we want on any given day. And it really reduces the stress and helps us avoid takeout and helps us reduce all of our meat when we eat during the week. And I totally understand that reducing meat is not an answer for everybody, depending on dietary needs. We do have a lot of restrictions in this household as well, so I understand that some ingredients are just not things that we can cut out, and that's totally fine. Hopefully I just gave you a few ideas for different things to try in your house to maybe reduce your grocery bill and maybe some new foods to try. But if you have any other suggestions or tips and tricks for that, put that down below in the comments. Everybody loves reading all of the tips and tricks that everybody has as well. And YouTube thinks you'd like to watch another video, so click on that, enjoy it wherever it is, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.